I sat down last week with Mount Union biology professor Dr. John Scott to speak with him about digital education and the direction of higher ed. Dr. Scott is retiring from his position at the end of the semester after a 30-year career at the university. Dr. Scott and I talked about the effect the digital world has had on his career as an educator, as well as things he believes must be considered in relation to moving forward in the world of education.
But I am so not an expert on this, and I suspect any predictions I make will come out to be wildly wrong. But I remember, so this is a story to get you started on this.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working here, not for very long, and we all sort of just got our desktop computers was the big thing when we first started. And we were all excited about that. And the then president of the university was a fellow named Dr. Harold Kohlenbrander. And I remember having lunch with him at the cafeteria once. And he was proposing, and this was, practically early 90s, I'm sure. He was proposing that he thought that's in the future, people wouldn't typically use computers as we know them, but they'd carry their computer around in their hand. And I just thought he was crazy.
Wow.
I thought, there's no way it's going to do this. And now we have cell phones that are basically computers that have more computing capacity than most of our computers ever had back then. And so he was right. My brother doesn't use his computer at all. He does everything on his phone that he used to do on his computer. So Harold Kohlenbrander was right, and I was wrong. So I use that as a prelude so that anything I say is probably going to turn out to be wrong. But I think there's a lot to be said for for digital education and online education in a lot of cases. There are things you can gain and there's things you can lose. I think that the cost of higher education, or sort of traditional higher education, has really gotten out of hand, and the consequence of that is people are looking for less expensive ways to deliver what you're getting, or at least part of what you're getting through a traditional collegiate experience. But on the other hand, there are some things I think that are not going to be easily replicated in a digital fashion. In my field, I think of the laboratory experience. There's nothing like hands-on laboratory experience in biology. So, I think there's always going to be a place for the more traditional college experience, in academically anyways, but it's going to change. I think a lot is going to change. If you're a kind of person that just wants to do this, and I'm happy doing this, and I don't want things to change, then I would say probably higher ed's not a place you should look for work, because you're going to be frustrated.
Yeah, right. Dr. Scott's advice should weigh heavy on the minds of future educators. Change is inevitable, and the only way to deal with change is adaptation. In his 30 years, Dr. Scott has adapted a lot, and I was very appreciative to get his insight on what is a critical time in the world of education.